Okay, so this time the problem is that we've got an inequalities that are in standard form. And when we have standard form, remember the x and the y are on the same sign, um, are together. And really what we want to do, because it makes it easier, if we have y is equal to mx plus b, that's a much, in y-intercept form, this is much easier because you know your slope, you know your y-intercept. So in this case, we've got to take our inequality into standard form. So 2x plus 3y is greater than 6. We've got to take that and we have to solve for y. So you have to go through and solve for y because we're going to put it in slope y-intercept form. So in order to do that, what am I doing to y? If you're not very good at this, you can kind of look at that DIR process, that describe. What are you doing to y? Oh, I've got a y. I'm multiplying by 3, and then I'm adding 2x. And so to undo that, that's just the describe. So now to do the opposite, because then I'm adding 2x because that's a plus 2, that's a positive 2. So to do the opposite, we got to go through and we're going to subtract 2x. And I'm going to subtract it on both sides of, and this is like the inequality is like my equal. So it has to happen on both sides of that little line because it has to be balanced. If you don't do it on one side, then it's not going to be balanced. So this goes away. And now you have 3y, and you still have that inequality sign. I haven't done anything to it. And then 6 minus 2. And when I have 6 minus 2x, I cannot combine them because the 6 doesn't have an x, but the 2 does. So this is just 6 minus 2x. So the next thing that you have, the opposite. So the opposite of multiplying by 3, so that opposite of multiplying by 3 is to divide by 3. Divide by 3. So now I've got y is greater than or equal to 6 over 3 minus 2 over 3x. I'm going to move this over here because I ran out of room. So now what happens is now we have to simplify this. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And I did not divide by a negative number, so my inequality stays in the same direction. So now y is greater than or equal to 2 minus, and now that's just a fraction, 2/3 x. So now we know the y-intercept is going to be 2. My y-intercept is 2 because that part right there is your y-intercept. And then we know that the slope is negative 2/3. Okay, and there's a solid line under it. So when it's a solid, so we know that this is going to be a solid line and it's going to be greater. So we're going to shade above. So we're going to shade above when it's greater. And now we're going to go through and we're going to graph. So when I'm going to graph my y-intercept is at 2. And then I've got to graph my slope. So I'm going to go down 2. So 1, 2, and to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Down 2, and to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. Down 2, and to the right 3. 1, 2, 3. And now this one, to get to your next one, we're going to go into the opposite direction because we're moving to the left instead of to the right. So instead of going down, I'm going to go up 2 and to the left 3. 1, 2, 3. And notice it's still going to follow that pattern. I'm going to go up 2 and to the left 1, 2, 3. Up 2, 1, 2, 3. And now I've got that pattern. Now I'm going to connect my points. I'm going to connect my points and make a nice solid line. And now what happens is I have to shade, and you can put numbers in, 0 and 0, 0. So if I did my checkpoint, 0 plus 0, because 2 times x is 0, 3 times y is 0. So 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 is not less, or is not greater than 6. So this point is not greater, so this is why we shade above. So you're going to go through and you're going to shade above that, and that's your point. Okay, one more example. So in the second example that we have, we're going to have this, and I'm giving you this example because you're going to have to divide by a negative number. So the second example, this is kind of like a star. You have to divide by a negative number. And then we know before, when you divide, you're going to have to flip that inequality sign. So let's see. So this is 7x minus 14y is greater than 28. So again, I'm going to have that little dir process. I've got y. I'm multiplying by negative 14, and then I'm adding 7x. So remember that describe, what are you doing? You're describing what you're doing to y. So this is like PEMDAS. What are you doing? It's those PEMDAS rules. If y was a number, I'd have y, then I'd multiply that by negative 14, then I'd add 7x, whatever that is. And so that's what you're doing. So now we've got to undo that. So the opposite of adding by 7 is to subtract 7x. So now that goes away, and now we have negative 14y, because it's still that negative, it goes with it. This sign still goes down here, is greater than, and again, 28 and doesn't have an x, but the negative 7x does. So combining like terms, there are no like terms, so it's just 28 minus 7x. So then the next process is that we're going to go through, and now we're going to do the opposite of multiplying by 14, which is to divide by negative 14. Divide by negative 14. So this cancels out, and now you have y. I divided by a negative number. That's a trick. So when you divide by a negative number, remember you have to flip that inequality sign. And now you're going to have 28 divided by negative 14. And then you're going to have a negative is positive. So 7x divided by 14. So we're going to go through and we're going to simplify that. So you're going to have y is less than 28 divided by negative 14 gives me negative 2. And then a negative and a negative, because those are together. So those are together, made that a positive, so that's a plus. And 7 divided by 14 reduces to 1/2, or you can do 7 over 14, it's fine. X. If you want to leave it like this, I'm okay with this. It's just sometimes you don't have enough to go rise over run, 7 and 14. So your y-intercept, so that y-intercept is going to be, so your y-intercept is just going to be that negative 2. That's your y-intercept. And your slope in this case, that slope is going to be negative or 1/2, or you can say 7 over 14. So it's 1/2, and remember your slope is always next to x. It's like married to x, or in a nice little relationship with each other. So then we don't have a line underneath it. So when we don't have a line, then it's going to be a dotted line. When we don't have a line, it's going to be dotted. And because we flipped it, it's going to be below. So we're going to shade below our line. So now we're going to go through and we're going to graph our y-intercept. So our y-intercept is negative 2. And then we're going to use slope to find our answer. So I'm going to go up 1 over 2. Up 1 to the right 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 2. But I want to get the whole line. So now I have to work backwards. Instead of going up, I'm going to go down 1 to the right 2. 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 So I've done my whole graph. And then I'm going to have a nice dotted line. Well, I've already got the dotted line, but I have to have that dotted line, and then I'm going to shade below. Now we can do that test point again. that test point, you have 7x minus 14y is greater than 28. So I'm going to plug 0 in for x, 0 in for y. So 7 times 0 minus 14 times 0 is greater than 28. Oh, well, 0 is not greater than 28. So I'm not going to include anything above my line because that's a test point. I have to include everything below the line. So you have to shade below your line.